On Saturday, August 29th, the StarCityGames.com $5,000 Standard Open Series comes to Dallas for the first time ever, and this event is going to be huge. We're talking hundreds of players, $5,000 in cash prizes, a 2010 Magic Cruise qualifier, booster drafts, EDH, and more, so make plans to attend the SCG 5K in Dallas and come and be part of the fun.
Hi, I'm Brian Kibler, and welcome to the Magic Show.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Magic Show. This week we're going to talk about some awesome Zendikar spoilers that were provided at last week's Gen Con, show you the first of 3 parts of my own Zendikar spoiler war in Instigator, and reveal the powerful keyword Landfall and its revelation regarding the Zendikar block theme. We also hear from Kelly Reid and his take on the finances of Magic. Let's go! So last week at Gen Con, Wizards of the Coast was there, and they broke out Plane Chase to battle participants with. And seeing as they used the official Plane Chase decks, all of them had a new Zendikar card in them, and all of them were spoiled. Let's take these one at a time. The first one spoiled is Beast Hunt. This, to me, is a lackluster common used only in creature-heavy decks. At 4 mana, it looks to me like a bad Gift of the Gargantuan, a card that didn't catch on regardless of its intrinsic card advantage. It's no Harmonize either, a top-tier card that I was sad to see leave standard. This card, like most of these new Zendikar spoilers, will work great in casual creature-heavy decks, but don't expect to see many of these rocking tournament tables. Next up, we take a look at Zendikar's version of Eyeblight Endings and/or Dark Banishings and/or Doomblades of the block, Hideous End. This is another removal spell that gets better by using a bit more colored mana. Sure, Doomblade is cheaper, but this knocks your opponent for an additional 2 life. However, for tournament players, that is not enough. The ease of casting Doomblade overshadows this card's utility, and the best comparison for Hideous End is Counter Squall, a card that simply isn't as usable or versatile as Essence Scatter. That said, this is a card that will be rocking limited and is sure to be a first pick for those playing black. Now let's get to the goodies. These next 2 cards revealed a lot more about Zendikar than we expected. Let's get to the first in Core Sanctifiers. Now this card tells us 2 things. 1, the core are returning. This race of blue-skinned warriors haven't been seen since Time Spiral, and before that they were featured in the Wrath Cycle, aka Tempest block, showing up further in Mercadian Masks. But the second and most obvious important thing to notice is that Zendikar is going to feature Kicker. That is awesome! Kicker is an incredibly fun and diverse mechanic that just makes cards better than they are at regular price. And look at that new wording. Yes, instead of if you paid the kicker cost, we took 6 words and replaced them with 4. If it was kicked is a nice shortcut and should be quickly adopted amongst the Magic populace. This card, of course, makes people nostalgic for other kicker cards, whether they're the ones seen recently in Time Spiral, such as Sentinel Woodreaders, or further back with incredible limited bombs like Magma Burst. I, for one, welcome our new kicked overlords. But the last card, the last card spoiled at Gen Con was a doozy. Check out Whiplash Trap. Yes, that is an instant with a type on there called Trap. I didn't make that up. You'll notice that while Trap isn't mentioned in the rules text, the alternate casting cost alludes pretty heavily as to what this will entail. Trap cards are cards whose cost is greatly reduced based on an opponent's actions. This, in essence, traps your opponents by having them perform actions which make your cards cheaper without them being aware they're even doing so. Of course, as time goes by, we'll learn exactly which trap cards are powerful and we'll choose our plays carefully. That said, the subtype Trap is very exciting. Why? Because it allows for instants to be classified in a way that hasn't been seen since Kamigawa block. For example, you can now have a creature that searches for a trap, has protection from traps, and may have a triggered ability when you play a trap. That is awesome. Instead of having to say things like whenever a card is played without paying its mana cost or whatever, you can instead reference the exact type of card you want with 1 word. Hopefully the difference this go around from Kamigawa is that traps will be good by themselves and will not need spirits and or splicing in order to make them playable. And hopefully the block will be better than Kamigawa. Moving on, what about my spoiler from Zendikar? Take a look at the artwork, name, and flavor text for Warren Instigator. Alright, this is what WotC gave me this week. So what can we figure? First, the word Warren in Magic almost always applies to goblins. The flavor text, which indicates the instigator is saying something ridiculously stupid, is also indicative of goblins who aren't known for their intelligence. Lastly, the word instigator and the flavor text combine to make you think that this card either incites attacks, incites creatures onto the battlefield, or perhaps lowers the cost of a goblin in your hand. Note we don't know the rarity of this card, so it's hard to delineate whether or not this card is pushed in power level, meaning it does something a little bit better than you would expect for its mana cost, something else we also don't have. So, here is my official guess for the card this week. Why these stats and this ability and the uncommon rarity? Well, one, I think this guy instigates creatures into combat whether or not they are your own, and whether or not they have summoning sickness. Secondly, it's fun to force decisions for your opponents and make them deal with those forced decisions. Thirdly, a 4-mana 3/2 haster isn't breaking power curves, but should be ideal for its effect. Lastly, as an uncommon, its effect would be too swingy as a common and limited, while uncommon keeps it from showing up in almost every red deck you run into at the draft tables. So, what do you think about Warren Instigator, and what are your guesses for its stats? I'll have more to reveal next week. Our last spoiler is a doozy, revealing a huge keyword from Zendikar and a potential limited and perhaps constructed bomb to our Magic canon. Say hello to Rampaging Baloths. Now, as you can see in this image, not all of this card data is available, and some of the wording is guessed, meaning this ability may change slightly, such as the tokens not getting trample, and the power and toughness might be different for Rampaging Baloths itself. However, a 4/4 trampling ass whipper who makes additional 4/4 trampling ass whippers just for playing lands? Oh my god, that is nuts! This guy just screams, kill me right this second, so don't expect him to live long after he resolves, but just one land played after he's on the battlefield and he's worth the cost of admission and then some. I foresee Rampaging Baloths making their way to the tournament tables before long. With that said, the biggest revelation here is the keyword Landfall. Too cool. It didn't take long for me to realize that this is the keyword and the concept that will tie Zendikar together. The land block is here. I am so excited. Finally, we get a block, or at least a whole set, devoted to one of the most underappreciated card types in the game. I am so pumped for Landfall, an ability word that triggers through an uncounterable, unstoppable action. It also makes cards like Rampant Growth completely busted depending on the power level of these Landfall creatures, and I'm excited to see what can be done with lands and land-based mechanics throughout the block. Many months ago, Mark Rosewater said that Zendikar would be built around something players like to do, which is play lands, of course, and that there would be a mechanic based around something they've had on many cards in the past but never put a keyword on it. Check out the 7 cards in Magic which currently trigger whenever a land is played or a land comes into play. My guess? Vinelasher Kudzu will be reprinted in Zendikar. It's a perfect card to feature Landfall, resonates with veterans, and is powerful enough to remain relevant. I'm sure as we enter the weeks of Zendikar previews, we'll learn more about this awesome ability and the cards found therein. The Zendikar pre-release couldn't come fast enough for me, as it not only heralds all new cards to enjoy, but it forces Lorwyn out of the format. Stay tuned in September, as I plan on having a Goodbye to Lorwyn show, discussing the movers and shakers in that overpowered tribal block of ours. Also note that I'll be live in Richmond, Virginia for the Zendikar pre-release alongside Ken Nagel from Wizards of the Coast R&D. Considering Ken, I Like the Fatties Nagel, was also on the design team and has been a longtime contributor and supporter of the show, I'm sure it will be an awesome day. Up next is Kelly Reid's Magic Financial News Update. As for myself, that's another show, folks. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Magic players, this is Evan Irwin, tapping the cards so you don't have to.
Hey everybody, this is Kelly Reid from QuietSpeculation.com, your source for gaming financial news. Now, the new textless lands in Zendikar are the big topic of conversation right now. If you don't know, Zendikar boosters and fat packs are going to contain full art textless basic lands, just like in Unhinged and just like in Unglued. Now, this is the first time they're ever going to be printed in a real set. This is your first chance to grab them in a foil. They're going to be hot. They're going to be real hot. They're going to be too hot at first, so you probably want to avoid them. You're going to open some in your drafts. You're going to open some at the pre-releases. But just don't start hoarding them right away. Everyone's going to want them. Everyone's going to need like 50 of each. So if I'm a mathematician, I'd say that's about 250 basic lands. Now, you know how often people get basic lands. They're throwaways nowadays. people are going to be valuing them way too high to begin with. So don't be one of those guys. Be the guy who's trading them away for good commons, for good uncommons. Now, Quiet Speculation mainly focuses on paper Magic, but the announcement of Masters Edition 3 containing Bazaar of Baghdad and Mana Drain is way too big to ignore. What's going to happen is these cards show that Wizards is clearly interested in promoting the online Classic format. For those of you who don't know, it's pretty much analogous to Legacy in paper Magic. It's no power has been printed online, but there's a lot of good cards. There's the dual lands, which they're printing more of, and those cards show that Wizards is planning to support online Classic for a long time to come. Whether or not they're going to trade well is pretty much irrelevant. It's Mana Drain. Of course it's going to be good. No word's been said about whether or not they're going to print any Mythics in Masters Edition 3. It's possible, and it's possible Bazaar and Mana Drain get printed as Mythics. If that's the case, they're going to be even rarer, and they're probably going to hold their value longer. The other effect of this is that other online Classic cards from Masters Editions 1 and 2, if more people start playing online Classic, and I know I'm going to start looking into it because who doesn't want to open the Bazaar of Baghdad in the booster pack? People are going to start wanting Force of Wills, to counter Mana Drain, and the dual lands. So if you've got those, now's a good time to hold on to them or start accruing some more, because once Masters Edition 3 comes out, people might start playing more online Classic. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past couple weeks, you've heard about From the Vault Exiled. It's a foil boxed set, limited edition, limited print run that Wizards released. It contains a bunch of old stuff that used to be banned or restricted. Now, it's got some clunkers like Curd Ape, which I guess it could be cool, but no one's buying a box set for Curd Ape. You're buying this box set for the foil Berserk. It's got new art, it's on the new borders, and it's a foil Berserk, people. The set's MSRP is a ridiculously low $35, and if you buy them at $35, you're stealing. You are stealing from the people you are buying them from. Get as many as you can at that price. You'll never, ever regret it. Just the Berserk alone's got to be worth that price of admission. You've also got Lotus Petal, Mystical Tutor, Balance, Goblin Lackey, Aether Vial. The list just goes on. Google the list if you need the whole thing. Get them all. They were pre-selling at Gen Con for $35 a piece. I was working at the Star City booth, and we'd give you $75 cash for them. No questions asked, on the spot. We give you 100 in trade, and if we got any, we weren't going to sell them. The set's good, people. If you play EDH, you want it. If you build a cube, you want it. If you play Magic, you want it. Get it. If your store's got them for $35 or $40, throw down. If they'll let you buy two, throw down for two. If they'll let you buy them all, throw down for them all. Pick of the week. Time Warp. People are starting to realize two things. One, that Time Warp's a good card. And two, that Time Warp's mythic. It used to be rare, and everyone thinks of it as a rare. The card is still undervalued at $6, which is about where mediocre mythics settle. It's out of the bargain bin. It used to be $4, but people have caught on. Now it's up to $6, and it's starting to sell out even at $6. So all the cards from Time Thief are really pick of the week cards, and they've been that way for a couple weeks because the window, people, is closing. If you want your Time Warps, if you want your Time Thieves, if you want your Open the Vaults, you need to get them now. Tezzeret's still like $12 because he's useful in Vintage and people like Planeswalkers, but just because he's double digits doesn't mean he doesn't have room to grow. He could go to 15 if the deck really becomes a tier 1 combo deck, like say Swans was for the few months it was in Standard. Tezzeret could hit 20. I'm not saying it will, but I sure ain't saying it won't. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning into The Magic Show. Thanks for checking out Quiet Speculation. And if you want more financial analysis, please go to www.quietspeculation.com. My name's Kelly Reid. I run the site. Thanks for checking in, and we'll see you next week.
To believe in your heart of hearts, say you have something to wear on your sleeve.
I always like the fatties.